Thank you very much, and thank you so much for including us. And it's an honor to be here. And I'm looking forward to working with the water team. What you saw there was a result of many years of trial and error. Obviously, water is a huge problem at Burning Man. One thing to kind of point out is, the things that we bring to Playa, like we bring this tower with sky bar on top, and it's multifunction. We also put, well, that's the thing. It's like one of our other kinks is to utilize the things that we have as much as possible. It's like a game for us, right? So that tower, we actually generate electricity from wind turbines and solar panels. As you saw, that's where our water gravity feed system is. There's lots of programming there, and don't forget Skybar. The containers, that's 75,000 pounds of sail shade anchoring, right? In addition to all of the value and making inexpensive and reliable transport from the mid-Atlantic to Black Rock City and back possible. I mean, we're artists and system nerds, and of course, Burning Man is the biggest overlap of on the Venn diagram of that, which is a favorite thing for all of us. So about that water system, some improvements that we've made since then. Well, actually, let me back up a little bit. There was one other system that we actually thought that we had down. So on the tower, we took the filtered water, triple pass filtered, disinfected, and then we actually pumped it up to the top of the tower, and with a power washer, we atomized it. It was clean water. We atomized it, and in 5 to 10% humidity, it pretty much just goes away. And 35, 40 feet up in the air, it's not really coming down on people. One belligerent drunk guy across the street who is a big problem for the whole, and we also got it cleared with Earth Guardians and the Rangers and all that. Got a lot of compliments until one drunk belligerent guy who was a big problem for the neighborhood complained. We had to do something about it, and so next year we came back with a solution that you saw the video for. So some improvements that we've made to that system since. Just as so many other people are talking about, it's education, empowering camp members to know what's up. That's a key thing. The hardest part is the people, is the integration into the culture there. I think yesterday or the day before, I had mentioned that, yeah, it's not that you think your way into a new way of acting, it's that you act your way into a new way of being. And the best way to, what we found over the years is, if you want people to get something, put it in their way. Put it in the way of everybody. So what does that look like specifically for water management, right? So at IMU, people pay for camp dues in two ways. One is there's a cash part, right, to help us with our shared expenses. And then everyone is expected, and we tell people up front, you should expect to do about 40 hours of contribution throughout the course of a year. A lot of that will be at Burning Man, et cetera. It's amazing to see who's still interested in becoming part of IMU when we throw out that number. And those who aren't, there's 2,400 other camps at Burning Man, and we'll help you find one that's good for you. But we end up with people who know that they're gonna need to contribute. So sort of setting that expectation up at the get-go. Second thing is we put it in line with our various duties. So there's an all-camp sign-up sheet, right? And so water management is on there, but also it's in kitchen management. So one of the specific kitchen duties is actually water management. And so there's a lot of exposure just from a duty standpoint, but also guess what? If you want to take a shower, you have to handle your own gray water, right? So everybody is in direct contact and experience of water. They understand, wow, boy, the gray water really gets generated quickly, right? Or, and they realize that you can't just turn on the faucet like you do at home. So if you want people to be aware of things, put it in their way, and make them co-responsible for the handling of it. And this last year, what was really nice is it seemed to work with that increased sort of inline awareness. We actually saw water use stay pretty level throughout the entire burn, and so that was a real win. And by the end, we only had like 25 gallons of gray water for a 60-person camp over 2 weeks. We were quite happy with it. There were some other improvements that we made to the mechanics of the system that actually will make this much more accessible and inexpensive for implementation. So a key thing is obviously get the evaporation ponds off the ground. You know, there's a truck you can use, there's a container, there's options there. And if you don't have any options, you know, definitely make sure that you're not making it easy for people to like dump their Cheerios or brush their teeth in or whatever. But if at all possible, get it off the ground in a way that people can't just sort of like come across the gray water. So in the video, you saw a long, like 40-foot evap pond. We now divide it up into 4 or 5 8-foot by 8-foot. It's just made out of, you know, 2x4 ponds. So that way, if you get a leak in one part of it, you just don't use that evap pond, right? Or you reskin it with another liner. We do those. Each pond is double lined, so we use 2x4s, heavy duty tarp, and those we use year over year. And then we will like change out the liners, the plastic liners that go inside, and that either gets recycled. It most likely gets recycled, because those things, you know, by the end of the week, you can tell they've been at Burning Man for 2 weeks.
Hey guys, so I'm Cassy. I run a theme camp with my partner Kimber. We've been like by no means like water experts. It's purely we're actually kind of event producers, and we came to Burning Man for the first time, I think it was 2014, and you know, just 4 of us doing our own thing. So I literally had our little minds blown and changed our life forever. The next year we decided, okay, we're gonna start a camp, and we're super passionate about sharing our experiences with our small skill set that we had. But never having been in a camp before, no idea of the ins and outs of it. A friend of us linked us up with another existing smaller camp who is like maybe 30 people, but he already had, he'd been going for a number of years and had the facility side of things down. So we kind of brought the interactive, and he looked after the facilities, which, you know, obviously we're all working together in, but it was all his resources. So we were running with him for 4 years, through a lot of like trial and error systems. We realized that our goals were not quite aligning. So last year was our first year separating and going solo. He wanted to grow it, and you know, had a huge generator, like aircon in all their yurts and that kind of stuff. So our aim really is, we've been pushing to try and turn solar for a really long time. It was really resistant. So last year we did our own, we went out on our own, which was a significant investment for Kimber and I, but we were really passionate about turning the whole thing as sustainable as possible. So we wanted to be running the camp 100% on solar, which we did, except for we have a big, an LED art piece that actually we found was a little bit unstable with the solar in it. We ended up needing a generator for that. But one of the things, I might actually see if I can share my screen and show you. a quick little video that shows our camp layout. I don't know if you can see this. So this is our camp layout that, so we also did with our tents. We gave each tent, they had their own smaller solar panel, which then came down into one of the tents, which we connected, connected to a battery. So it powered a light, a fan, and a little swamp cooler. So this is where I kind of come in on the water side. Let me play this for you. But actually funny looking at this when we arrived, I think someone mentioned it yesterday about BlackRock not telling you who your neighbors are, what your position is. So we were given this size space, but we didn't realize actually the orientation was completely the other way around. So we got on playa, we had to redo the whole camp, the whole layout. So this is one of the main things that I want to discuss with you today. This was our kitchen, truck, and water. So I might pause it here because then the rest goes into accommodation, and I can cover that another time. So basically, this section here is, yeah, so there we have, what we did actually, we converted so we bought a second truck and we converted it into be our kitchen and water truck. So we have like a permanent, forward. So you can see in there we had 4 IBCs. So 3 of them we brought in freshwater, and then 1 we left for gray. It was actually, we brought in too much water, but it's our first year running the facilities. Our one absolute cannot happen is to run out of water. So then we basically, what happens here, so we had 1 that was purely for the shower and 1 that was purely for drinking. Then we had in here with like the sink, so we had like sort of pumps into our own grey water system there. So what we did in terms of our grey water, for the sink and that kind of the food scraps, we pumped that straight into our IBC to take out with us. But we did create over this side, so with our shower water, we designed a system. You can see here on the top is ended up being a 40-liter tank, which we ended up putting on the roof of the truck as it was a little bit higher. I mean, we only built this whole system when we were out because I'm from Australia, so we kind of come out 4 weeks in advance and build a lot of our stuff. So it doesn't always end up looking exactly as we designed it before. But so our tank was on the roof. It was gravity fed down into the shower. Then we had the first collection here underneath the decking. And that was to take out all the solids, the hair, and then that went into a reservation tank here underneath, which then we had a second system. So we had a manual pump there. So what we asked everyone to do, we explained the system because this, sorry, I digress. This went into a larger filtration system that we used purely for swamp coolers. So as a way to evaporate all the shower water, which was, it's fairly clean, you know, it's a little bit of hair and some soap. But we had an allocation of 40 liters a day. So in the morning, whoever's on the water duty for that day would pump the water into the tank. And if it got used up, it got used up. You didn't get a shower. That was our way of managing people that are, because we do bring in a lot of like new burners. So it was kind of our way of managing a little bit of just making sure we didn't run out. So this, and if we go back to the filtration system, what we did was the first collection was all the larger solids, like just mostly, I guess like hair and any kind of solids. Then it went through into that reservation tank. We had a 100-liter tank. Then there was a manual pump there. So this would then pump into a second filtration system. And what we did was we got one of the large, like 40-gallon poly barrels because it's got a nice wide open top. And we did a similar system to Charles we had the bottom was a really wide mesh muslin with activated charcoal with the bigger pieces at the bottom, then the smaller pieces. Then we had this, it's a pool grade sand, and then we had gravel on the top. So basically this then like trickles down. We also put in there just as a backup, we weren't trying to filter it for drinking water, just purely for the swamp coolers, but we also put in steri tabs just as a backup, being our first time doing this. We wanted everything. We didn't want to put bleach in because obviously it's going into people's yurts with the swamp coolers to cool them down. We thought that wouldn't be a particularly nice smell to have for everyone while they're trying to sleep. So we just had basically a manual pump between this shower tank reservoir and the filtration system. And then basically at the bottom of after the filtration system that we had another smaller reservoir with a tap on it. So that was for people to go and fill up their swamp coolers and go and use that to cool down so they could sleep for a few hours in the morning. Now, what we found in terms of this system, other than learning a lot about pumps and the type of pumps that you need for certain things, the filter system actually worked really well up until maybe, I think, Thursday. And it just wasn't draining through and it got blocked up. So for us, it was a huge learning that there must be some way to clean that process, because I think it was getting a little too clogged. The water just wasn't coming through after the Thursday. So what we then did as a on playa kind of backup, we used all of the melted ice from our coolers that are in the camp there. So we used that, which is also added benefit for people because the water is already cold. So it was kind of an easy workaround for people. We still had plenty of water to go around. But yeah, that was something that didn't quite work for us. But I mean, it's all been a huge learning. It's not something in an area it's not our background, but having a lot of fun kind of learning about it. But it was every day, we'd come back or go out at night and come back to having a different grey water issue, which was always, I think everyone found it kind of funny that I was going to be talking about grey water today because it's the gift that keeps on giving. But that was our filtration system. So if anyone has any questions.
Cool. Cass, there's actually some good questions in the Slack, but because of time, I'm going to move on to Lauren. And if you could, and actually maybe this is perfect, you can activate the Slack by answering there. And we'll move on to Lauren. Thank you so much, Cass. That was beautiful. I guess I've never used Google SketchUp, but that was incredible just to like have those angles and zoom in.
Yeah,
Like
no problem.
Watching a movie with narration, so thank you.
Actually, I've just got one quick thing that I forgot to mention. We actually met some people in Reno called Nevada Container Supply. So they recycle all of like IBCs and poly barrels, and they're really great guys. So we found actually getting recycled. They have both food grade and for gray water usage, like a quarter of the price. I think it worked out for food grade IBC. It was like $100. And what we actually did, because our storage space is so limited, you see in the front of that truck, they actually took the containers back. So, because we were also worried about having it sit there for a year and not knowing like whether it's going to be safe for use later. And we've spoken to them, and they actually are now implementing a program where they're happy, and for us to promote it as well in terms of just for getting the recycling going, is they will happily supply the IBCs and full of water and then take it out and then clean it and put it back into their rotation. So I'll pop the details for those guys in the Slack chat if anyone wants it. They're super great resource.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
I've been going to Birmingham since 2003, and I used to be part of a camp called Playa Bike Records, and that imploded PBR. And then, so I took their old sign and I cut it up and I made it into this other camp called Playa Bike Transport. I rearranged all the letters. So that began I have a degree in conservation, so that's always been a big theme of our camp in general, just like burners, like, reuse, recycle. And so anyway, so we became, eventually in 2011, I started this camp called Playa Bike Transport, and we would basically take your bike to the playa for $50, and that's how we got funding. And that's why we were called Playa Bike Transport. Then we changed our name to Playa Bike Repair, and we started doing bike repair. So this was my first little foray into the bike world of Burning Man. I collected all these bikes from people in San Francisco, and I took them to Burning Man, and it was a horrific nightmare. And so we later switched to rentals, but that's not part of this story. So point is that we used to be this little tiny camp with 2 or 3 people, me being one of them. Now we're a camp of over about 115 people, and up until last year, about 2,000 people would rent their bikes from us, and we would fix about 4,000 bicycles as a bike repair camp. So that's our service. So we have a lot of people in camp, and they work really hard. All of our campmates work 4 shifts of 4 hours each. So that's minimum of 16, and a lot probably do 20 or 40. And so this is our camp now. This is the line to get into our camp on probably Monday morning. That's all people needing repairs. So is that radical self-reliance? Well, if you came all the way from New Zealand, you probably didn't know you need to bring a spare chain. So we're some of the biggest proponents of radical self-reliance, but we, like this conversation that we're having on the Slack channel about radically community reliant. We like that people are reliant on our community because people come into that community, it draws them in, we get to interact with them. And the downside of that is that we have to work extremely hard to fix these bikes, and it's extremely expensive. If you go to buy a bike tire in a bike shop, it's like $50. So a lot of people know that, and they blow it off, and then it's time to go to Burning Man again, and then they're at the burn, and we give them a whole new wheel. So like I said, we fix about 4,000 bikes. We try to do everything in a way that is super, super organized, because otherwise our mechanics will burn out and not want to participate. So that means if they want a part, it has to be right where they expect it. So I devoted, much of my 10 years to thinking, how do you take a system that works in the default world and make it work on the Playa? And so everything we do, like this is our mechanics trailer. You can see how organized it is. That goes to Burning Man just like that. So it lives in our warehouse, and then it goes to Burning Man like that. These are our rental bikes. You can see how nicely organized they are. This is our camp. We don't allow RVs. We like the nice communal feeling of everybody being in there. Our camp is covered wall to wall with billboards. The trade show industry, so we get billboards. That way, if we drop something, and we have very, very small move. Think of like a ball bearing. Now think of something that is that size, but not metal, so that you don't pick it up with a metal detector or a magnet. We have a lot of that because of the bikes. So our entire camp, probably several football fields worth is covered with this vinyl. And then we reuse the vinyl year after year. We just bought a bunch of solar arrays. We've got 6 of those DC solar trailers you heard about earlier. We don't know what we're gonna do with them yet because our camp's sort of in transition, but we were gonna use them off Playa and Playa. So this is, we bought some semi-trailers and we loaned those to artists. This is an artist who after 3 years still had not removed his artwork from my trailer. So we reused that. Recently we made it into a parklet, and you can see this is now a San Francisco restaurant parklet. So this is our kitchen. We built it into a semi-trailer. And this goes back to my very first year, is that it was so much work to build our camp with this other camp that by the time we were done building it on Thursday, it was time to tear it all apart. That was the joke. Like, why build that? You're gonna have to tear it apart in an hour. So I was like, well, why are we taking all this shit out of a trailer to build a kitchen? Why don't we just build the kitchen in the trailer, and once the trailer is empty, you'll be left with the kitchen. So, and I had a similar philosophy because I hated RVs, and I was like, what is up with all these RVs? I'm a backpacker. Like, I don't need all this stuff. So what's up with all these RVs? And I went in one and I was like, well, this is really cool, but it'd be much cooler if you turned it inside out. So instead of having like 2 people go into an RV, you turn it inside out, and it's an RV for like 100 people. And then I was like, well, that's gonna get really dusty. So let's create what we call camp in the box. Everything is in the box, which is this trailer. And it went through some evolutions. And since this topic is about water, there's some funny ones on that. So the first year we had the 4 totes in the nose, which another presenter had also done that. And then behind the water, we had our showers, and behind the showers, we had our kitchen, and behind the kitchen, we had our bikes. And that was all great until we got to Burning Man, and we realized that like to access our water, it was already 100 degrees, you had to like empty that truck. And that was kind of entertaining because you couldn't get to your water. So the following year, we drilled a bunch of holes in the front, and then you could, get in the water from the sides. And then we eventually grew to the size that we like camp in a box ended up being camp in like 20 boxes. So now we send in almost 20 semi-trailers, but each one is a designated thing. So this is our kitchen. It's just a kitchen. There's no water in it. There's no showers in it anymore. Little joke, I asked my caterer one year how we could improve the catering, and he said clear shower curtains, which I thought was really funny because the shower was in the truck. More view of the kitchen. It's got a huge 3-basin sink. This is supposedly one of the best kitchens at Burning Man, according to the kitchen tour. So here's the 3-basin sink. And you might think like, wow, that's beautiful. It's so great. But the reality is like, it uses so much water to fill that sink that we ended up putting a couple buckets in it. And those little buckets alone cut our water use probably like 50% because people were filling the bins. So there's 3 sinks in there. We don't use any paper. We use almost everything as metal. We buy everything used. It's a $17,000 range I got for $500. So then once all this stuff goes to Burning Man, you say you got your kitchen trailer, you got your shower trailer, and it's got to go on water. So we take in 4,000 gallons of water, which is a little ridiculous, but that's what the trailer holds. So that's what we send it with. The front of the trailer is all the water. The back is the showers. Then this is the aerial view. There's a little room for the showers. These are former water totes. And so it basically is fueled by a couple water pumps. And then that's for the supply line. Then it drains down into a gray tank. And when that gray tank is full, then we pump it back using one of these big trash pumps. We backfill our tanks so that they can, what was a freshwater tank becomes a gray water tank. And so we don't, going back to these showers, you can see that you're standing not in the bottom of the shower, but you're actually standing about a foot above. That means that all the sand and waste and human hair and fingernails and everything else, you're not standing in that, you're standing above it. And then, so that's sort of its own little filter. At the end of the week, that's kind of, I don't want to say it's gross, but it's kind of gross. Then we use these big trash pumps. We discovered that we don't have to filter anything, just go buy a real pump. It's a 2-inch trash pump that sends all the water back. So a freshwater container becomes a gray water container. We eventually decided to upgrade this whole thing. We built a little room on the back. I'm kind of hardcore, but I'm also kind of wimpy, and I didn't like to be cold and wet when I got out of the shower. So I built this room around the showers. And so now we have this beautiful shower room. You step out of there and totally windproof. And this is what the unit looks like in our warehouse. And let's see, this is what it looks like on the playa. Then that's pretty much it. So you can see basically, I'm pointing at it thinking you can see me, but you can't. So I guess I could use a mouse or something. I don't know if you can see that or not. But basically, so the water will flow out of this tank, flow into the tank on the ground. And then when that ground tank is full, we send all the water back into what was the gray. And this is super, it's like bulletproof. You don't have to think. But it does use a lot of water, or people use a lot of water. But the whole premise is you have to care for your people in our world in a way that is so extraordinary, because otherwise they're not going to want to work on the bikes. If you're going to ask 16 hours of somebody to work on bikes. So our whole premise is give them really good food, give them really good comfort, and do as much as you can in advance so that when they get to Burning Man, they don't have to build a kitchen. They don't have to build a shower. They can devote all that 16 hours to the bikes. And that's why we can fix 4,000 bikes. So by doing all these little things in advance and making life easy for my campmates, they're able to give a lot more to Burning Man than if they had to do any of this themselves. So it's more like a philosophy. And my time's run out, but I'll give you a quick couple seconds. So you're wondering where I get these ideas. I get my ideas all the time. Most recently, I got my ideas. I went to the fire camp. It was the weekend of Burning Man. There's no Burning Man. I happened to be in a fire camp. So I was like, well, let's see how these guys do their logistics. And I took a tour. They gave me a COVID test and they gave me a tour. So this is their version of turning an RV inside out. They put their sinks outside, they tow this thing in, they plumb it. Same thing for the firefighters is my premise. You know, those firefighters are not going to come in and want to build a shower. They're not going to want to come in and build a sink. They want to kind of come in from their 18-hour day and go to sleep. So those guys think a lot like I do. I get a lot of inspiration from them. You know, this thing's all built. They just hire some vendor to bring it in. You could build one of those. This is on an auction site right now. I follow military auctions. This is a portable shower unit. This whole unit will go for $500 on an auction. It's 4 showers, a pump, a water heater, a generator, and the sinks. $500, the military auction. This is somebody else has done something similar to us. Another, so Burning Man Temple one year, they borrowed some of our flatbeds and they built a temple on that. I mean, a shower, same thing. They want to care for their crew. This might be a shower one day. It is a form of Hubble telescope. We were going to turn it vertically. It's 26 feet tall by 9 feet in diameter. And I was going to call it the Hubble Shower Tower. So you can go 40 feet in the air and go have some good Burning Man shower sex. So, what else? So we touched on recycling a little bit.
Great note to end on.
What's that?
It's a great climax, if you will, to end on.
Okay. The last thing I'll say is you're probably wondering what you do with all these totes after they're done. A good chunk of them, we take the totes, and instead of ending up with this mess, what we've done is each tote is it's got a little hole in the top to put the water, and that is now where you drop your tin can or your aluminum can or your bottle. And so our totes are now our recycling. And that is my last slide. So that's us.